Lucas with Epi News and Channel 7.
And I'm Catie Coutu.
Today we're here to talk to you about texting while driving and the epidemiology surrounding texting while driving. Texting while driving is a growing trend and national epidemic that is quickly becoming one of the country's fastest killers. Drivers assume they can handle texting while driving and remain safe, but they don't know the numbers because they do not lie. According to the National Safety Council, there's about 1,600,000 deaths of accidents occurring from distracted driving each year, and texting accounts for nearly 25% of those accidents. The DMV estimates that at least 9 people are killed, or more, every day, and 1,000 are injured every day to distracted driving. According to the National Highway Transportation Administration, the odds ratio for texting while driving means that you're 23 times more likely to get into an accident while texting while operating a vehicle. New technology, it makes it easier for people to communicate, thinking that they can text faster or not have to have a limit on their texting, so they can be texting the whole time while they're driving, and that it's safe. This only makes it more tempting to take your eyes off the road, putting not just your own life at risk, but other people as well.
It's important to remember that every time you get behind the wheel, you're entering a shared experience with mothers, fathers, friends, and children. In fact, 48% of young drivers claim to have seen their parents drive while talking on the phone.
That's just a bad example.
I know, right? Young people are very impressionable and typically copy what they see, so it's important to keep this in mind next time you text behind the wheel. Texting while driving is actually the leading cause of death in teens, according to the DMV. In 2015, 42% of teens said that they had texted while driving, and 52% said that they had talked on a cell phone while driving. On top of that, 77% of young adults are very or somewhat confident that they can safely text while driving, and 55% of young adults claim that it's easy to text and drive. Despite the confidence in the ability to text and drive, the number one driving distraction reported by teen drivers is actually texting. So to combat distracted driving, there's actually some technology for parents like DriveCam, an AT&T Drive Mode mobile app, and a text-free driving pledge.
I think these distracted driving technology is really going to make the difference in stopping people from texting, because they think it's so easy, especially if the 75% of young people think that they can do it, but in reality that they're getting into accidents and causing other people harm.
Yeah, totally.
Wow, those are some pretty shocking statistics about texting and driving.
I know. Well, do you want to tell us more about the major epidemiology of the problem?
I would love to. The epidemiology of texting and driving has been around for a while, but the first recorded patient zero of texting and driving occurred in August 2007 when Danny Oates, a young driver, was killed by another driver who was allegedly texting while driving. The defense had argued that the driver, Jeffrey Woods, had allegedly suffered a seizure, but they were not confirmed about that at the time of the accident. I think that's pretty scary that it was in 2007, assuming that texting has been around a long time before 2007.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if there's anything else that happened before then.
Yeah, although this is our patient zero that we found on for car accidents, we're sure that there was probably some more accidents related to texting and driving that were not recorded or reported about.
Mm-hmm. So following the patient zero, Washington was actually the first state to pass a ban on texting while driving. And shortly after, in January of 2008, Heather Lee Hurd was killed by a truck driver who allegedly was texting while driving. Her father, Russell Hurd, has been actively supporting a law in various U.S. states called Heather's Law that would prohibit texting while driving.
And that would be good to keep that policy, because if it's something related to a personal death, then that Heather's Law would be something that they can hopefully get initiated throughout the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next major occurrence that happened was also in 2008, is the Chatsworth train collision in Los Angeles, California. So it was reported that 25 people died after a train conductor had been operating the train while texting. And so this is not exactly texting while driving, but it is still distracted use of the cell phone while operating a machinery. Although it's a train is a lot more powerful than a car and can cause a lot more damage. So it's pretty shocking to see that a person who was supposed to be trusted leading the train was texting.
Mm-hmm. Not exactly being a responsible driver.
Exactly.
Speaking of texting, I think I just got one myself. If they were not driving.
Exactly.
Let's see. Following the Chatsworth train collision, Alaska, New Jersey, and Minnesota were the first 3 states to create a policy banning cell phone use, like all cell phones, while driving in 2008. This cites drivers with fines from $250 to $500.
And hopefully these fines and the bans kind of started to get people away from it back in 2008 when people may not have heard about texting and driving. They may have been doing it, but they didn't realize how dangerous it was.
Yeah, and I think it kind of got the ball rolling on the whole creating policy about texting while driving. Too.
Yeah, once a couple of the states followed along, I think the others followed suit and decided that it was something that they needed to do. Also, after the train crash in May of 2009, a crash occurred on the MBTA line in Boston when a driver, 24-year-old Aidan Quinn, was texting his girlfriend while operating the train. This crash did not kill any people, but 46 people were injured, and the crash estimated a cost of $9.6 million, which, regardless of the money, it still put a lot of citizens at risk in the city.
When are these train drivers going to learn?
I know. It's not quite a car, but it's still texting while operating a vehicle.
When it comes to distractions and driving, there are actually 3 different types of distractions, and these are visual, manual, or cognitive. Visual distraction is something that takes your eyes off the road, while a manual distraction is something that physically takes your hands off the wheel. And cognitive distraction is when your mind is somewhere else other than what you're supposed to be doing. The funny thing about that is texting is considered distracting driving because it actually impairs all 3. Will, you want to tell us about the offenses?
Yeah, so there's some pretty serious offenses. Texting and driving is held in the same category as going over 50 miles per hour over the speed limit, reckless driving, improper lane changing, following a vehicle too closely, and driving a vehicle without the proper permit, as is a CDL license. And the second conviction of any combination of any of these could result in a 60-day or 120-day suspension. So for those who do not think that texting while driving is a serious offense, it's just as bad as going in the opposite way or recklessly driving. So it's pretty serious.
Sounds pretty serious. The penalties for texting while driving can also include anything like hefty fines, a license suspension, a rise in auto insurance rates, and even prison time.
Do you think that text is worth it to get your license suspended?
Not anymore.
Me neither. You can wait till you get home, or you can pull over and text. Hi, I'm Lucas up here on the scene at Bridgewater State University with breaking news of a car accident, texting and driving. While leaving the school, a student was using their phone and texting and got into a car accident. This is to tell other students that it's not safe to text while driving, that it endangers you and other students. This is the prime time for students to get caught while texting while driving when they're leaving school. They think that they can text, but they cannot. So this is the PSA to everyone else to not text and drive. Back to you guys in the studio. Back here in the studio. So all this epidemiology and data surrounding texting and driving is pretty shocking and interesting for the work that we're doing. To see how this disease and condition affects the public health and public health policy, recently handheld devices. There's been a ban in 14 states across the country. There is no ban on all cell phone use, although the 38 states have banning for teen and novice drivers using their cell phone. There's a text messaging ban in 47 states across the country. And so all of this, the information that we have on this is helpful in using to create policy to help prevent it occurring again.
The future looks bright for texting and driving bans, and a lot of companies, in order to combat the increasing prevalence of texting while driving, companies have created applications for smartphones that allow drivers to be hands-free. Some application features include sending voice recordings instead of text, sending an automated message while driving, or even not allowing the driver to access apps while they're driving. Other companies are changing the way their students even learn to drive. One class in Belgium, known as the Responsible Young Drivers, is showing kids firsthand the risks of texting while driving. The students are asked to text while driving and avoiding traffic cones, and are recorded on video the whole time, and at the end they're shown how many cones they hit. Their video has been viewed more than 1 million times on YouTube and is a more graphic approach to texting and driving. The company has even gone so far as to say that when you're in a car, it's like you have a weapon in your hand, in reference to the cell phones, of course.
I think this is a weapon because it has the ability to kill people, just as any other weapon lethal can do.
Mm-hmm.
The National Safety Council has also been fighting the use of cell phones since 2009. Since then, they've been banning texting in 29 states, and they hope to, in the future, ban texting in all 50 states. The prevalence of texting is quite wide across the country. Based on the data that we've found, there's a lot of incidences of texting and driving every year. And so although the incidents are increasing and the bans are increasing, people still seem to do it. So it's the question is, to get people to stop texting, they really need to look at this data and figure out that they're causing potential damage to themselves and other vehicles around them. In conclusion, from all this epidemiological data surrounding texting and driving, we decided that you as viewers should take action and decide not to text and drive and be an ambassador for texting and driving and tell others that you see to not text and drive because the dangers they can cause. The prevalence of texting and driving is still pretty bad, but we can reduce the incidence of texting and driving every year by following these rules and sticking to the bans.
And if you have kids at home, urge them to stop texting and maybe even get them to sign a pact with you that neither of you will text and drive. Once again, I don't want to say it too many times, but teenagers are at the highest risk for distracted driving due to texting. So,
yeah, you don't want to be another statistic in the 25% of accidents caused by texting and driving. Learn from example.
Don't be a Heather Herd.
Have a good night. Channel 7 Epidemiology News.